Hi everyone, welcome to RPA Explorers channel.
I hope you have watched my previous part 1. That is the first use case series where we created the blank template and process parameter and your queues and everything. So make sure that you watch that video. So this is going to be part 2 in which we are going to continue on creating initialization activity. So first, as I mentioned, we are going to initialize all the application views. And if you haven't watched my previous video, basically we are going to interact with this application. So we are going to build the complete process in this video. Okay, so in the initialization we are going to launch it. So let's launch Excel, Edge and Outlook. So in real time, as you will be running your process in a different machine, make sure that you clear or you have your desktop clear for your automation to begin with. So the first step would be clearing your existing application or killing your application. So in that way, I'm going to add a separate activity which we'll call it as kill activity. Let's also add log message, killing used applications. Okay. So I'm going to kill, like you have this component which is called terminate by name. Let's take this, and here you have to provide your name. So in my case, I'm going to kill Excel. Okay, I'm just going to run this. Okay, now Excel is, and this particular name you can get from your task manager. So here you go into the prospective properties, you can take it. Okay, and apart from this, we'll also need to clear the Edge application. I mean the Edge browser. So let's use Edge, and now my Edge is open. So let me see. Okay, this Edge is not working. So let's go to the Microsoft Edge, and you can open any window. So right click on it, go to the properties. So here you will be getting the name. Okay, this is called MSH. Let me get it. And let's provide this name. Okay, still my Edge has two different pages. Let me clear it and let's see. Okay, so this is working perfectly. So to clear the Edge, this is the shortcut MSH. So if you have watched my video of logs where I have mentioned a different way to achieve it, like your console log and your normal log. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to create some activity, and we'll use that particular activity for all the logs. Okay, so first let's do that. Okay, let's say I'll create a new activity. Let's say logs, and open it. So basically you can create this particular thing as skills, and you can use it in whichever project you want to use it. So go to this and switch for running. Okay, so I want to just console my log. If not, I want to log. Okay, let's, without a decision, we can do this. If it is running from studio, I want to log it. I want to use this console log. If not, I want to use this message. So here, if I use this particular activity which is called logs, let's say that I'm using logs over here. Okay, so here you do not have a parameter, so you cannot use it on all your activities. So let me create a parameter. So the variable, and let's use that as a parameter. So I'm going to create an input parameter. It's basically a local variable, but by the name I'm differentiating it as a parameter and variable. So let's say input parameter, your log message. Okay, and now go to the logs, click on this gear icon, plus, and then add your variable. So this should be of type string. And now what you can do is you can just assign that particular variable to your input parameter and to this one. So in that way you do not have to create two different variables or having two different activities every time. If you are running your process from studio, just this particular studio console log will be executed. If not, you can go with this log message. Okay, If I go to the initialization part, now I have this particular. So now what I can do is, instead of having a separate log message, I can, okay, this should be of type string. Let me check. I'm just changing the type string. Okay, now let's delete it. And if I go to the, let's redrag it. Okay, now I'll be able to provide it. Okay, and now let's see whether this particular log activity is working or not by just running this. Okay, this is completed. If you open this particular thing will be executed, and in order to view this console log, go to this console log. So here you can see that killing used applications. We have killed all the used application. Now the next step would be launching your application. So let me do one thing. I'm just creating one more activity which is called kill, or this kill application. So let's create a one more folder. Let's call it as maybe the sub activities. Okay, so inside this sub activity I want to create a kill activities, I mean the kill application. So this is my first activity. So let's say first kill apps, double click on it, and then we'll copy all these three. You can simply copy it and you can paste it. Okay, this is good. Okay, so now in the initialization I'll remove these three, and instead of that I'll add the kill apps. New activity. This would be my activity 2. Launch app. Okay, let's drag and drop it, and inside this I'm going to have my log. Let's say launching RPA challenge website. Okay, and in order to launch it we should have a separate connector. So I'm going to interact with universal application connector. So let's add that connector. Let's rename it to so here use this start method. Like I have explained each and every connector methods in all my videos. So if you have watched my beginner's guide or separate connector video, you will be aware of all what I'm explaining now. So let's choose the application type. This is H, and as we have already created a process parameter for the application, I'm going to use this. Okay, and in order to use this process parameter, make sure that your particular bot process should be assigned. For that, need to create your robot as well. So we haven't created a robot, so let's create that now, before which I'll show how you can get the process parameter. So if you go to the toolbox and filter with process, so you have these two, like process parameter and process parameters. As the name suggests, this is to get single item, and this will give you the list of parameter if you have more than one. And now my intention is to get just only one, which is app URL. So let me choose get process parameter, and here you have to provide the name app URL. So if I simply execute this, it will be giving me an error that I have to assign my bot process. So see, assign bot process method to provide your configuration. Okay, now let's quickly go ahead and assign the robot, before which I'll also show you what is the error if you're not assigning your robots or you do not have a robot. So I have this RPA challenge. Okay, looks like you do not have a permission to utilize robots for the selected bot process. Okay, let's go to the bot process and let's click on assign robots. So I have this robot which is on my own machine, so let me add it. Okay, after adding the robot, let's see. let's also try to create the robot credentials. So to create your robot credential, you should have some credential set which is missing. So let's go to this page. Name, let's say Windows credentials. So I'm going to choose Windows credential. Robot is my robot. Let's save this. So let's save everything. And now this robot is also unresponsive state. So let's assign unattended robot. So now the robot is available, and also I have assigned my studio user. So let's try launching it now. So my bot process is RPA challenge and robot is my robot. So let's click on OK. Okay, now the bot process is assigned. So you can try using the process parameter. So let me just run this. Okay, so you can preview it, and this is the particular value for the given name. So for app URL we get this, which is from RPA Hub. Okay, now the next step is to pass this URL to the start input parameter. So create a different variable. Okay, so in real time you can create a variable for each values. Okay, so now I'm just going to directly pass my value to the path. So let's see, I'm going to run this. Okay, so now my edge is opened. Okay, let's see. Okay, for web application it has to be the start parameter. So let's try launching it again. Okay, so now that the RPA challenge website is loaded, so now this is good. Okay, so let me also log a log message that the application is launched successfully. So now we have completed the initialization, in which we have killed the apps and launched the application. Okay, now the next step would be creating a work item, which is nothing but creating your queue work item in the RPA Hub process. Okay, so let me open this queue, which is called RPA channel. So in order to use queue, the first step is to add your queue connector. So let's add it now, and I'm going to create a separate folder. So let's create, and we'll have all the connectors in a single folder. So let's rename. Now I'm going to add a connector, which is queue. So I'm going to place this inside my connectors folder. So in order to use this queue method or the queue connector, double click on it and go to the properties panel. So here you have to provide your queue name, which is your queue name from RPA Hub. So let me take this and provide it over here. Okay, so now let's open create work item, and first let's have the log message. It's creating queue work item. So first, if you have watched my queue connector video, you'll be knowing all the different methods. So first is to create it with the two methods, either JSON or your string work item. So I'm going to use create JSON work item. So here you have to provide a queue, your work item, a name, a type, and your priority, stage, SLAs. If any other filters need to be configured, you have to add all your properties here. Okay, so first what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to download the Excel and save it in my project folder. Let's rename to input.excel. Okay, let's also copy this file path. I'm going to create a separate parameter for my Excel path as well. So in case if you are placing your file in a different location in future, you can simply go to the parameter and update your value rather than updating the process every time. Let's say input Excel path, and let's provide the value. Okay, double quote is not required. Let me remove it. Okay, so now let's save this. If you go to the process parameter and refresh it, you will be able to sweep the value. So now let me copy this input Excel path, and let's take this process parameter component, and I'm going to get the path. So in order to create your JSON work item, you have to read the Excel and loop through each row, and then you have to add it. So let me quickly open the Excel, and meanwhile let's add the Excel connector as well. And now let's rename the Excel to be input Excel. So double click on it, and let's use the open method to open your Excel first, and then my file path to open it. So once I get I open my file, I want to use another method to get the rows so that I can loop through each rows. So let's take the row count, and in this case sheet name is sheet 1, and you can also create a separate parameters to store your sheet value. It will give me the entire rows count. So in this case it should be 10. Okay, and now let me take a for loop. As the first row is header, I'm going to pick the row value from second until the total number of rows, which is 10 in this case. So after I get it, I want to read my Excel, for which I'm going to use my get rows. So here get rows. Okay, let's see it. So let's pass the value from to index. Okay, now it will give me the row of each value. Okay, so I have to define which row value I have to pick here, and in this case it starts from A till G, and I have to get all the rows. So let's say B, G, and now I'm going to change my data type to string. Okay, here let's see how you can create it. So if you have already aware of how the work item looks like once your work item is created, you have different, so it should have a separate name, your status, stage, type, and everything. So here you have this type, response, content. So basically when you create it, the mandatory parameters are your name and request content. So additional parameter, whether you can give the type, SLA, stage, and status, everything. Okay, so now let's see how you can add it. This name, so I'm going to provide a complete name including the concatenation of your first name and last name, and then the type, I'm going to call the type as the, so we call the role in company as the type, and stage is not required. In case required, you can also give any other fields as stage. Okay, now let's start configuring it. So first we have to provide the name, for which I'm going to take this, you can either format it, but I'm going to take this format text. So let's use a format text and go to this icon. I want to concatenate my first name and my second name with this space. So add two parameter, and it should be A and this should be B. So the resultant value should be my name. So let me show you after I add it, so it will be more clear. And for the type, I want to add the role in company, which is from column D. So let's provide the column D to the type, and let me create it as high priority. If you want to have some specific row as high priority, for example, whoever have the role as analyst should have the high priority, then you can add that decision, and make sure you create a separate variable for your priority. Create all my work item in the same priority, high. And also I'm not going to give any SLAs, and I don't want to have any stage as well. And then let's click on this, where you can add your JSON properties. So first we have to give the first name. Basically you have to give the properties over here. It's not just you have to give the column name, it's up to you. You can give it any name, but just to simplify it, I am giving the same name as in the Excel. So as soon as I click on OK, all the input properties are getting added. So now let's map them. So A should be my first name, B should be my last name. So if you want the code to be even more organized, create different variables for all these properties and then you can easily map it. So in that way it will be very easy to read as well. It will give me the output parameter, which is work item ID, and this basically is name exists if you have any duplicates value, where like when you create it, we have enabled this option that the work item name should be unique. So this name should always be unique, and to validate that you get this output parameter of type boolean, so you can validate from here. So if you see, it's kind of blinking. It defines that it is trying to create an item, get the work item again. So it is trying to create and get back the rows and just creating it. Okay, now let's go to the queue and refresh it. Okay, now it has created, but for the first name it says it's 0 and 1. So let's see what's the error for that. And also the first name is null, the last name is null. Okay, let's see. Okay, let me stop it. So I think it's because of the rows count it gets. So if you see the rows count, it should be just 10, but it is considering it is 100. It might be because that I have my cursor somewhere on the Excel, so it is taking the entire row, and that is the reason after it added all these 10 items, it take this value where the first name and the last name is null, so it just created with the same thing. So if you go to the particular response request content, you will be seeing that everything will be null. We have this enabled, which name should be unique, so it is not creating for rest of the rows. Maybe I'll just save the Excel and close it. If I rerun it, I hope it should be properly adding just the 10 item. So maybe just to confirm it, I'll keep a breakpoint and let's see. Okay, still it says 100. Maybe what I can do is I can quickly copy this, copy the required data and paste it in a different Excel and rerun it. So okay, this time it is 11. So I think it might be because that I have placed my cursor somewhere on the rows, somewhere on the Excel, so it is taking the null value for the rest of the columns. Okay, now it is good. So that we have created the items. I think we can stop this video for now, as it is taking more time than I expected. Maybe in the next video I'll be covering the next particular activity, which is process work item. So basically, let's see how you can get the work item, and also I'll explain how the request content for this particular item gets created. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also in case you guys find this video useful, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel as well, and don't forget to like this video to recommend more people. Thank you so much for watching.